Hi.
Hi.
I'm so excited you're here. So Colby Minifie is here joining us for Danay Garcia Podcast.
Danay Garcia Podcast. I just hit the light.
And we're all about collecting and growing seeds. Because, I believe that our lives is like a garden and everything we plant will grow. And that's how our life is. And we have to take care of it. So you, Colby.
I love that idea.
Yeah, you are one of those plants that I saw, you pass by and you're like, you have good stuff inside you. Although every time we were working, you had it was another character. Virginia had no many seeds to give away.
That's true.
But one of my first impressions of you is that I remember we talked and you were dressed in this, nothing like you. But you mentioned something like, I don't know. I forget exactly what you said, but you
don't remember every single word
I said that first day.
It's unacceptable.
No, not acceptable.
However many was that? A year ago? Year and a half ago?
A year and a half ago.
Oh my God! I can't believe you don't remember.
But I remember you said something like you had this great awareness of your surroundings, like what you eat, what you do, how you the things that you bring to your life, it could be from food, from what you drive, how you live your life. Like you filter the world in a very unique way. And I remember I was like, oh my God, you're so interesting. Because there are things that
saying that.
But yeah, and you have that. And I don't know if you noticed that about you, but I remember you're like, I don't drink this water. This is wrong. And I remember we were going through this transition of everybody bringing their own bottles.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was really exciting.
That was really amazing. And before we didn't have that on set. Everybody would just bring plastic bottles.
Yeah.
And it was thousands of plastic bottles a year, a season.
A season.
And this season we just changed that. And I remember you brought your stuff and you're like, you appreciated so many things about, and it just says a lot about you. So
thank you.
Have you always been like that?
Oh, no.
Oh, really?
No, I mean,
how did it happen? Or when?
Yeah, that's a good question.
When did you have that transition?
I feel like I'm trying to remember. I mean, it's interesting that you see. I'm happy that you see that side of me because that is a side of me that I've been kind of really trying to pay attention to and work on for years now. But I don't think that it was kind of gradual how it happened. And to look back on how I used to be, which was just kind of
I don't imagine you like that.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. My family, my parents are extremely careful about what they eat. My mom worked for Gourmet Magazine for 32 years. So she's very particular about food. My dad is very he's a really, really strong man, but also very sensitive to food and got into health food when he was in his 20s. And now he's one of those cool, I eat the mushroom seeds from the thing. And then you're oh, okay. And he it makes me look great. But he's kind of like this black sheep in his family where he is very particular about what he puts into his body. And so I guess as a family, it was always a moral thing that if you don't take care of your body, there's something morally wrong with you.
Got it.
And the way that I rebelled as a kid was by eating so much candy that I gave my parents deep
headache,
sadness because it was the thing where I was we'd be going out to I don't know, we'd be at a diner or something and I'd order a coffee, which was not great for them. And I'd take the sugar and I'd just go,
oh no,
while staring at my mother. And she'd be like, "Go now!"
Really?
Yeah. And I ate
when
so
did you
much
turn
sugar.
Around?
It was middle school that I ate, that I started because I was oh, I can go out to, I went to a middle school and high school in Times Square. And I was I can go out to this.
Oh yeah.
To Papa John's and eat pizza. And I was never allowed. When I was in preschool, my parents would send me to preschool with my own carton of soy milk. I wasn't.
What?
I never had milk when I was I never wasn't allowed sugar. I have a friend who's my high school drama teacher who remembers me as being the sugar kid, begging for an M&M, just one M&M. And so by the time I ate sugar, and was kind of like a piñata. Like I looked the same.
Right.
I was just filled with candy. And like, then I think as around college hit, the years after college, I would say like the years after college, in terms of like food, a gut infection for a long time, for about like 10 years.
Because of the sugar.
Yeah. And
really?
I realized, I
only
only
realized
realized
that
that
infection. You must have eaten a lot of sugar.
I was eating a lot. I was eating like a bag of sour candy a day.
Wow.
Like it was really, I hope mom and dad don't watch this. But yeah, no, it was bad.
Wow,
and because I was like,
rebelling.
I remember one time I didn't eat vegetables for like a full week. And my gut, it felt like it was a taffy machine. Wow. It felt like it was just stringy and like full of.
It's addictive, yeah.
Yeah. And so then I realized I was like, it was actually, I did this long walk across Spain. It's called the Camino De Santiago.
Those long trips, they always find
know.
like the stars are aligned and the way or something.
I realized I was like, if my body can do this, walk 600 miles across the country.
That's a lot.
In however many days, like, then I gotta take care of it. Like I gotta, I gotta treat it well. And also I realized that I had been kind of living on this manic level because I had been eating so much sugar.
It's great for acting.
But like I didn't really let myself just calm down. It was just not, which I kind of still like. I guess it's
natural energy.
Now it's like how I don't know how to be anyway else, so it just kind of bled over. But in terms of like the like water bottle environmental stuff, I think I did this
like the trash. Like you have such a great consciousness of like how much trash and where to put the trash and the water bottles and plastic and what it does to the planet. You come, like the first time I met you, I remember I came home and I was like, wow, Colby, so interesting. Like I remember we had just like 3-minute conversation about this and that, and you were talking and you kept bringing things out of your bag like Mary Poppins, just like
I was like probably showing off all my like cool
oh, and this and that and this and that. I was like, wow. I was like, who comes to a apocalypse like that? Like this is good.
It's nice that you looked at it like, wow, that's cool, rather than somebody else might be like, wow, she's annoying.
No, it was amazing. I actually was like, you have so much knowledge. I mean, it's not like we talked a lot about it. I wanted to talk about it now. Like when did you become so aware of the environment and what happened? Like what hit you that you're like, okay, I need to change this?
I think it was a combination of things. I think like 2 years before I did that walk across Spain. Oh God, I think, it was a combination of things. When I was in high school, I went and did this program called New York to New Orleans that was started by a bunch of New York City public school kids to bring a bunch of other New York City public school kids to New Orleans to help canvas and build houses and
because of the
volunteer because of Katrina.
Wow.
And I did that, and I remember being like, just thinking that if nature has nature rules, like rules it all.
We're living it right now.
Yeah, like
pandemic.
We're really kind of insignificant. Like, and we think that we've mastered stuff, but we really haven't.
Yeah.
And then I went and did this. I was, born and raised in New York City in Manhattan. We did go in the summers to New Hampshire and had some kind of like hiking in the mountains, and I saw fire in a bonfire in a fireplace for the first time, which I like never had. You saw it on the stove,
Yeah.
We'd never see fire unless a building was on fire, I mean, like that was the only time.
Wow.
But I realized I was like, I need to get into nature because I'm out of touch with myself, I'm constantly living for other people. So I did this thing called National Outdoor Leadership School, which is this amazing program with a bunch of, you can be any age to do it, but you take a course in some skill you want to learn, and you can do it for 3 weeks to a month to like 3 months.
Wow.
And I learned, I for a myriad of reasons, I ended up in this class of learning how to sail, which I wasn't entirely like, I want to learn how to sail, but like it was in the Sea of Cortez in Baja, and we had 3 22-foot boats, and we went on the boats and then would camp on the shore every night. And we did this trip and learned how to
Colby,
sail.
that's amazing.
And like everything was leave no trace. So every piece of trash that you had to take with you. Every time you had to use the bathroom, you had to dig a 6-inch hole.
Wow.
We were not allowed toilet paper.
Wow.
We were not allowed soap. The only time we were allowed soap was after we did our
business.
Yes. But even to wash dishes, we would cook these we cooked like shepherd's pie and like all this amazing stuff because we had like bags of flour and we would mix everything together and make stuff.
Everything beforehand.
Yeah,
so you know how to do it. Wow.
But learning all that, I remember one time we didn't have any technology. We weren't allowed. We had a satellite phone that we had only for emergencies. But in order to find the beach we were supposed to camp on, we had to look at a topographical map and be like, this looks like the right beach. And then like, it was really cool. And we had to do everything with math and then one time we had to sit down. There was a day where we were winded in, so we couldn't go sailing and we were running out of re-ration material, like food and stuff. So we were, they were trying to find stuff for us to do. And we sat down and we had to measure without a calculator our carbon footprint. And I realized living in a city, you have a lower carbon footprint because you're taking the train, you're not driving a car, you sharing a boiler with an entire building. There's a lot that you're saving on living in a city. Yeah. But I also realized like I would go and get a Starbucks, like
the venti.
Yeah. And then throw it away. And I realized like I use so much single-use plastic all the time. And if I were to pile all that single-use plastic that I use in a week into a pile, I would have a huge amount. And when you think about how much plastic everybody uses every day, and then there are these statistics that like by 2050, there'll be more pounds of plastic in the ocean than there will be like animal life, like sea life in the ocean. And you're like, wow, like how does that? And already there are these huge geysers, huge, like the size of Texas, like just like huge mounds of trash in the middle of the Pacific Ocean that are they're collected there somehow because of all and they end up on people's beaches and they don't end up in like, you don't see tons of trash in California beaches or in New York beaches. They end up in beaches where of the people who have had the least amount of impact on all of it, who are not doing nearly as much. Yeah. And I think that trip was really informative.
How long was that trip? Like the
just
sailing?
Like a month.
A month sailing?
Yeah. And I learned that
That's a lot.
I'm really seasick. I don't do well.
You were seasick for a month in this trip.
Well, we would camp on the shore every night. So every night we would get off, we would like roll the boats up onto the shore. But every day that we were sailing, I'd be like,
oh my gosh. Yeah.
And they'd ask me to do something and I'd be like,
I guess. But a month is a long time.
It's a long time.
Like that would transform you.
Yeah. And by the end, our hair is like,
you're all over. Yes. So after you did that trip, that's when you kind of like.
That was the beginning.
That was
like step 2, I would say.
Okay.
And then I did.
That's so nice. That's so beautiful.
Yeah. It was a huge learning experience. For me. I even learned how to like communicate with people because for me, I would just, if I was frustrated with someone, I would just. Like we had these cook groups and some of the kids wouldn't cook. And I'd be like, okay, fine, I'm going to cook. And I'd be like, it's fine, And then I wouldn't tell anybody how I actually felt.
Okay.
And I remember.
But you were for a month with the same people.
Yeah, it was the same people, but you changed your cook group. So you had to tell, you had to like be very communicative with each group of people. And then I remember at one point I was like applying and I did all these trips. I did these trips because I was like, I want to be an actor. But I studied acting for quite a while. Right. But I didn't want to just only study acting. I was like, if I keep studying acting, all I'm going to know is just like acting. Yes. Yeah. And that sucks.
It's not healthy.
So from a young age, I was like constantly like, I need to go and get some experiences somewhere.
But that's part of acting. Like the more you travel, you get different cultures. Your imagination expands too.
Because you've had a life.
Yeah.
Like you've had a life.
Yeah. It expands. You travel like the trip to Spain. Like you travel, you saw so much, and when you start creating a character, it's not just single-minded. It's a combination of things.
I am who I am only because of like I studied abroad in India. I went to Uganda when I was in high school. Like there were things that I was like, I need to get out of this. Just because I was like, I'm in New York. I'm a privileged motherfucker. Like, what else
I'm from Manhattan.
Happening? Yeah. Like,
who says that? That's like, what? I just found out you're from Manhattan. I thought that you come from like a farmland. And you're like, no, I never had a balcony. I never had a patio. Oh no, you never had a patio?
No, we were like in this. I shared a room with my sister that was the size of like, I'm trying to think of like a nice bathroom.
That's crazy.
It's like the size of like a nice bathroom. Like we had that's not true. It's bigger than a bathroom.
Yeah, but your part is like tiny. The size of a bathroom.
Yeah, like we had 2 bunk beds.
Oh, you got a bunk bed. Yeah. So it's not like you two.
Oh, no. Like bunk bed, desk, dresser, exit. Like it was,
You go first, then I go. Like, wow.
Yeah. And there was like a clean line down the center of like Colby's mess and Hayden's total perfection.
That's funny.
Like
everything is perfect.
And she'd be like,
sugar rush. No, exactly. Sugar rush.
Exactly.
That's great. I mean, I honestly tell everybody that traveling is like the key to expand. Like it's like in your case, you expand even your lifestyle. Like, and that's really who we are. Like we could be actors, doctors, nurses, whatever, but your lifestyle is really what defines you.
Yeah.
And traveling is really kind of like makes you adapt into, oh my gosh, India. Like I never been to India, but I'm sure people have changed when they go to India.
Yeah, and people are it's just a different culture there. And you realize like, oh, the way that I grew up.
Yeah.
Even as simple as if you smile at a man on the street, as a woman there, it means something different than if you were to smile at somebody on the street in New York. You smile at somebody on the street, you're like, they're like, back. But in India, it just means something else.
Wow.
And so even something as small as that, you're like, oh wait, I can't smile. Like I gotta watch that.
Wow.
And then I realized like, oh, I smile a lot. You learn about
yourself. Yeah.
It's just something as simple as that. It's like this huge.
Well, because you're out of your environment. You're in another country and you're like, wow, I don't have I miss my normal food, like whatever it is that you eat.
Yeah.
Like they don't have it in India.
Yeah.
Like,
it's
like, like they don't have Starbucks. I don't know if they
have
a lot of time
on the toilet in India. A lot of time.
I hear that.
But it was good.
Yeah.
But there was, just to like round it out a little bit, I did this play with this actor, Michael Shannon.
Oh my gosh.
Who's
amazing.
Yeah. But I learned from him, I think it was him that made me realize like, oh, caring about the environment is cool.
Yeah.
Like they have this thing, a really great thing in the theater community that's it's called being a green captain. And every cast you have an equity, like the equity union, the theater union. You have like an equity deputy who's just is the person when cast members are having trouble, in order like the union liaison. And then they have a green captain who is the environmental liaison, which is incredible.
That's awesome.
I wish that they had that on sets,
Oh my God.
And that's what I'm trying to get that. Like
we talked about it a little bit. I remember you mentioned because you're like, oh my gosh, everybody brings their own water bottle. I was like, yeah, I finally did it. You're like, yes. And you
also, what's great about Fear is that Fear the Walking Dead, season 6 went green.
Completely green.
And it was so exciting. It's like everything's compostable. The one thing that sucks is that the infrastructure isn't set up to have somebody come and pick up all that compostable that compostable trash by the end of the day. That is so sad because then it goes into a plastic bag and then gets taken to a landfill.
Even when you try to do the right thing, our system is not.
Our system's behind.
It's behind.
A little bit. But it still is huge. If you think about if you think about how many crew members we have, I would say 300.
Yeah.
Let's say each one of those uses just one plastic water bottle a day,
which is
of
impossible.
Course, they use more than that.
Yeah.
That in 3 days, that's 1,000.
Yeah.
In about 3 days. So you think about how many thousands that was.
For an entire season.
Yeah.
Which is like 7 months.
I know COVID has made it a little trickier.
Yes. And also coffee.
Yeah.
Like the plastic.
Yeah, I know.
The plastic cups of everybody now brings their own stuff.
Yeah, it's great.
And it's been awesome. And when you were talking about the stuff that you would like to change in a set, for example, what besides the bottles and all that, what is in your mind that you'd be like, this will make a difference?
I think reusing building stuff.
Okay.
I mean, I was just we build all these sets and then you take them down.
Right.
And then where does all that material go?
It's true.
It gets
That's
probably
huge.
put in the trash.
That's huge.
The cars that we use on this set,
Huge.
like we had a car situation. The amount of these cars get destroyed. We have glass blowing out of them. We got bullets going into them. We got some of them get put on fire.
Right.
You know, they're total. And a lot of times, you're using cars that are
old cars,
total beaters, ones that'll never be bought or used or whatever. But it's like, what happens to all of that material at the end of the day? I wish also, and Fear is really good about this, having vegan options. Yes. That's really exciting. Yes. Because, we could go into the details of what eating meat on a daily consistent basis does for the environment.
I met you the same week you became vegan. Remember that?
That was intense.
I mean, and you had these long hours of work in the heat with horses.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And you looked at me, you're like, this is my 4th day being vegan. And you were like, yay. Like really quiet. I was like, how are you doing? He's like, I'm hanging in there. And then again, the little Mary Poppins bottle, I have this. I have my chocolate from Whole Foods. And I was beans? Beans. You were transforming. That.
That happened overnight. That happened.
Did you make the decision overnight?
I did. Yeah. My best friend's been vegan for a year and a half. And I'd always be like, eggs, right in front of her. And she'd be like, super not, and she wouldn't judge, but I knew I was I don't know all the information here yet. And I purposefully did not learn the information because I just wasn't ready. Food is a very sensitive, it's a cultural thing. It's in our body memory.
Parties,
bank.
Thanksgiving, there's no Thanksgiving without a turkey. What are you doing? What's happening?
I know.
Christmas without, I don't know. It's not made for, I feel like maybe in India, maybe what cultures?
No, not Japan. But there are a lot of very bean, rice oriented food culture.
Food culture, not in America though.
No. And even it's meant, I really do think if we were meant to eat meat, and meat is meant to be eaten rarely. If you think about evolution and what we were as humans, okay, you'd be there's the bison, and you would eat the entire animal over a long period of time, and you'd make it stretch. Right. Because you had to.
Yeah, you have no many choices then.
And now we're just wow,
it's too much. Yeah, it's everywhere.
But also, I have the luxury, and I want to be very clear about this, living this lifestyle is not always the cheapest thing to do,
not
right?
At all.
It's not always the most convenient thing to do.
Yeah.
I have the luxury of having time, having money, not having children and working, 2 to 3 jobs on minimum wage in order to keep that family together.
Yeah.
And so I have
and
the
that
luxury.
bothers me though. It bothers me that the vegan food is not accessible for everybody.
Yeah. Well, I will say rice and beans is a complete protein, and it's the cheapest thing you can buy. And
really?
Yeah, and it's perfect.
It's perfect. But can you live on it though?
You can live on rice and beans forever.
Really?
Yeah, you can live on rice and beans forever. Throw an avocado in there every once in a while. Throw some greens.
Right.
But if what happens in our show comes true.
Yeah.
I'm buying all the rice and beans in the world. Like
Right.
when COVID happened, I was like, rice and beans, rice and beans,
Yeah,
rice and
me
beans.
too. Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Everyone
'cause
bought beans.
Of course.
Canned beans is perfect.
Yeah.
And it's really cheap.
Yes.
But it's not, it gets boring. And it's not like the most like yum thing.
Of course. Not for an everyday
Yeah.
life. Not for like every day. Yeah.
And when cheese is so good, and when meat can be so good, and when butter is so delicious, and like ice cream is good. If you're living in a certain situation, you're not going to eat rice and beans all the time.
No. It gets hard.
When vegan food gets expensive is when you start getting replacement things. So like, vegan butter and vegan cheese. Vegan, my favorite vegan butter is like $8.
Wow,
it's expensive.
You have a good taste too.
I have really expensive taste, but like,
no, but yeah, I see.
That's when it gets expensive. And I'm not like, a vegan butter, a stick a night,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? But like,
no, I get it.
That's when things start to
those
rack
little
up.
things that make it easier for you to sustain that.
Yeah.
The vegan, because I remember you're like, I'm vegan. This is my 4th day, and you were like, and then I was like, how are you doing? And then I remember 2 weeks passed, and you're like, I'm going. I'm still there.
Yeah. And then 3 weeks hit, and I was like, I'm not doing it right. I don't feel good.
So what? So before somebody becomes vegan, what do you recommend them to do? Like for me, for example,
I would say that's a good question. Okay, I would say be kind to yourself.
Okay.
I would say, just be like, don't push yourself. Like, do it when you're ready. What helped me was, I was flying down to do this job. I had cleaned out my fridge at home.
Oh, wow.
So
visually was clean.
Yeah, completely. I was like, there's nothing, I can't keep anything in here. Yeah. So I got it because I'm going to be gone for like 4 months. Mm-hmm. So it's got to be out, Yeah. And I was on the plane on the way here. And I was like, let me just watch this movie that my friend keeps talking about. Oh. And I watched Cowspiracy. And I realized, I was like, that's it. Like, really? That's it. That was just the breaking point. And it meant that when I went to go grocery shopping in Austin, I had a clean slate. I didn't have to buy any, because I think some of the hard things sometimes is like, oh, well, I have this ingredient that I really like with this thing.
Right.
And I'm just going to buy it because, I have it. And it's hard to clean those things out.
Totally.
So I was ready. And then also, I hadn't done enough research on what I had to do for my body
to change, right?
To like make sure that I was getting all the nutrients I need. Mm-hmm. You have to have a fat, fiber, and protein in every meal. So if that means like avocado, fibers like some kale or whatever, right. And some protein, beans. Right. A lot of times I wasn't including the protein in my meal. I was just like, this tastes good and it's vegan. Great.
Right.
And then I really didn't feel good. And so I had to
no energy?
No energy. And like, I just was like, I'm trying to remember what it felt like. It was like, I just felt empty.
Wow.
I just felt like it was just like a bottomless pit, and I was just eating popcorn. Like I was just like eating whatever I could get my hands on, because I was like, this isn't.
Yeah, something is not working.
Yeah. And also I would say like, be kind to yourself. It's not for everyone. It really isn't. Some bodies
they can
fuel on it. And some bodies are like, this is not good for me. And so if you're really doing it as best you can and it's not working, mm-hmm. and you don't feel good, then listen to your body.
That's good.
Like,
that's good to know.
And I will say, even if you going vegan you don't have to go vegan. Even if you eat 2 out of 3 meals a day as a vegan meal, just 2 out of 3 meals.
It makes a big change.
Huge difference.
Really?
Huge difference.
In your energy level? Or
even like your energy level, just in terms of the environment.
Even the environment.
It makes a huge impact. And that's in terms of skin, like, I was like glowing. Yeah. I felt like active. I felt like I had energy. Wow. There's also a really great documentary that's kind of propaganda, but it's great. Called I can't remember. It's called,
it will come back.
It's like Arnold Schwarzenegger's vegan. Like all these bodybuilders.
Really?
Yeah, they were like, all of a sudden I have all this energy.
I heard of this.
Yeah.
I heard of this.
it's really great.
Yeah, okay.
Because you're like, oh. And watching that too, I was like, oh, maybe this is.
Yeah, because people think vegan is like extremely skinny, no energy, like off. Yeah, so like you don't eat meat.
Also, people think vegan is like a super white thing,
right?
But I learned the statistics, and I actually have to triple check it to make sure. But that for every white person that goes vegan, like 3 people of color go vegan. That's crazy because people of color are the ones who are living on the front lines.
Yeah.
Most of the time, they're the ones in I think it's called frontline communities where they're downstream from the smoke, from the toxic waste. They're downwind from the smokestacks. Right. They're the ones who are having so many generational health problems because of being close to these industries that are just fucking us up. And like, they are the environmental justice people. Like they are the ones who are doing most of the work. Yeah. And like, people don't listen, you know? And then there's a white person that's like, environmentalism. And they're like, oh my God, that's so cool. But that's what happened to me. Like, Michael Shannon was the one who was the green captain on that show. And I remember we were all getting water out of the Poland Spring thing. And he was like, we got to change those bottles. Poland Spring is bad. And I was like, what?
You see, it just takes one person.
It takes one person. It really does.
It does take one person. Well, for me, you brought that up, and I was not expecting it at all. And I remember being like, I wish we were not working so I can talk to you more about this. Because you were like, so like, I'm doing this and this. The little things that you said, I was like, oh, that's my so God. Nice to hear. That's why I was like, maybe she was raised in a farm and she like milk cows and I love that baby calves and all that.
I fed these baby calves off my own tip.
Yeah. Like my father is like, a farmer, because you had such a well-rounded, and your Instagram is all about green and camping. And I was like, of course she knows all about this. And then I just found out that I'm from Manhattan.
I'm just a poser. But I really.
But this is a lot about you, how you kind of transform yourself. And that's what I love. When the whole COVID happened, that this podcast was kind of like coming together. I was doing these karaoke and chats.
So
and
cool.
It was
karaoke
hilarious.
And chats.
So I would karaoke in the morning and then chat for 15 minutes and then back to singing. But I remember it started like, I'm going to do this for a month because how long could this last? Yeah. Then 2 months and then 4 months and then 5 months, 3 times a week during karaoke and chats. I was like, I was not expecting this to be half a year. I'm like, oh my God. But it was transforming me and the audience. And then I'm like, okay, the chats are about, things that I've read, people that I've talked to. Mm-hmm. Like I said, it takes one person to kind of like wakes up your curiosity, which is like what you are all around. Like you're like a result of like pure curiosity of like the world, acting, diet, environment. Like you're a product of all that.
I'm a product of a lot of other people's planting their seeds.
Yeah.
And then
it wakes you up.
Yeah, totally.
That curiosity is awakened. And when you wake up, then you choose a lifestyle that it's an everyday thing. Like this is what you eat. This is how you filter the world, and then you pass it on to other people without even realizing.
Yeah, without even realizing.
Like Michael Shannon passed it on to you, and he didn't know.
He didn't know.
He was just like, "That's not okay." Or
And
you're like, "What?"
And he said it not even to me, but in front of me. It was just
it was not even like at you.
Somebody else, and I was like, "Oh." And then I remember I was like, I asked him, I was like, "You're into the environment, huh?" And he was like, "Yeah, I've always been into the environment." I was like, cool. I don't know. But it was him. It was like, that's honestly, so nice. I hate social media for so many reasons. It's so bad for so many reasons.
Totally.
But it was Instagram. Like there was a girl that I saw who like had this aesthetic that I was like, cool. And it was her and somebody else who like started a store called Package Free Shop that had all these, they were like, these are some cool utensils and like these are some other things. I was like, this looks so cool.
That's nice.
And then I think it was, who else? All this sounds so cheesy because it's just, like
no, it's actors. Not at all. Yeah.
But like Shailene Woodley is really, I really respect her. She went when Standing Rock was going on and they were trying to build that pipeline straight through it. She was there Like it really got big in like October. She was there in April.
Wow.
She was living there and like standing with these Native people,
the Native Americans,
and being like, this is not okay.
Wow.
And that I saw that and I was like, that's because sometimes it feels kind of unattainable. It feels like, oh, that's for other people to do. Or like, how do people do that? Or, you know, I'm busy. I want to, you know, take a rest for a minute and like watch Veep, you know, like, and like that, seeing somebody else say, no, this is something I care about. And I don't give a fuck what people think of me or like what I'm going to lose out on socially by going and doing this thing and standing with it. And that kind of makes you realize like we do have some sort of power.
Oh yeah.
And I got like this amazing email from a fan saying, I don't get a ton of fan mail, but I got this one and I was like, this is it.
This made you.
Yeah. Where like this person was like, I saw you in something and looked you up and then saw that you were doing all this green stuff. And now I like bring my water bottle everywhere and I bring, this person was like in Europe somewhere. And I was like, that means more to me than you saying I did a good job in this thing.
Oh, of course.
Because like, yeah, I really care about acting. I really care about telling stories and like telling weird, different stories that can make somebody emotionally intelligent, you know? But then that, like the climate emergency is a huge emergency.
It's massive.
And to have one person, because that one person can inspire somebody else.
100%. It goes a long way. And what's your standing rock goal? Like, what is that one thing that you are like, I care about this specific, I know the environment, but is there something specific like the oceans or the forest? Is there something that touch you?
That's a good question.
Because the environment is like huge, right?
Yeah, it's huge.
It's our entire
It's our planet.
Yeah.
The world.
Is there a part of this environment that worries you the most? Like it just keeps you kind of like, I have to do something about it, because I will follow you with that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm curious about what you think too. But I think like the thing that I mean, it's kind of daily. Daily it's something different, but daily whenever I take a walk, I'm like, will the trees still be changing? Like, and then that makes me think about food.
Of course.
And water. And already we have, Flint, Michigan, people still don't have clean water. And if that were a white community, they would, you know? And like, I think about food and I think about children. I have always wanted kids. I don't know if I can have children. You know what I mean?
I feel the same way. I have an 18-year-old and I know what it's like to see this whole 18 years of like, you know, raising a person and what it takes out of you and what it takes out of the world. It really takes a village. Like it really takes a village.
Yeah.
I think of like who's running the world that we're living. We all have our own power, but we still kind of going around in a circle with certain leaders that are not responsible for our future at all. Yeah. Like education is getting more expensive. Like college is way more expensive than when our parents went to college.
Yeah. And when there will be more and more food insecurity and water insecurity, and that because of that food insecurity and water insecurity, there'll be a lot more climate migration.
Massive.
And then our country is going to be like dealing with this stuff. There's going to be a lot more, just a lot more violence, a lot more tumultuous space already. I'm sharing that with you. More than we already have.
Which is crazy already.
Yeah. Already it's like we're living on this level of high anxiety. I have a friend that just gave birth like right before the pandemic hit. And her child is in this, just like being born into a world where all of a sudden her mother is nervous and
with
worried.
every right. With every right. And And now look at what the kids going to school. They cannot go to school.
They can't go to school. They're regressing.
The system is
social.
not built for them.
Yeah.
The system is not built for kids not going to school.
Yeah.
The system is not built for like kids not to socialize. Like the kids are not, they have to socialize.
Yeah.
Like you start seeing all that, and we're not, I mean, our parents never expected that to happen with us. Yeah. So we're really a generation of like, imagine 2 generations forward, like what's gonna future it. So I really wanted to bring you in because you're such a, you know, your awareness of who we are, where we stand, like our earth right now, it's crying for help. Like it really is like the green, the food, like, you know, the food that kids eat right now is like full of chemicals and people don't have any awareness of what they're eating. Yeah. And parents too, they're collapsing with the whole system too.
Yeah,
and
they're not receiving any help.
There's no help. There's no knowledge, and everything is a cycle. And how can we break it? I feel like we're in a path to either we're going to make it or we are going to really know the future is dark.
Well, one thing I want to say is like, it really, talking about this feels so depressing sometimes because it feels like there's this systemic, there's so many systemic problems and that we have to wait for some kind of like leader who gets it to change things. Yeah. And for the Senate and Congress to also follow it and after them. And when the people start investing in what their businesses are, they pay attention to that. Yeah. So like in like the most fundamental way, our dollar and where we spend our cash has huge impacts. Massive. So like, you know, every time we buy a plastic water bottle, for example, that gives an incentive to that company to keep making them. Or even where we put our money, like Chase Bank, within 4 years invested, I want to get this number right, but I think it's like $268 billion in the fossil fuel industry within 4 years. And they're the worst, right? Oh, wow. So between them and all the biggest world banks, it's, I think, $1.3 trillion have been invested in the last 4 years in the fossil fuel industry. So because when you go to the bank, you're like, I put my money in this bank and I trust this bank to do what it's going to do with that money. That if you take your money out of that bank, it can't do those things. Of course. So if you divest from that, you put it in like a credit union or a bank that invests in green energy. Then, you know, I read this great article about McDonald's when the documentary Super Size Me came out. Oh, yeah. McDonald's was in trouble because they're like, people stop buying things at McDonald's. Wow. Because you could die. And this guy proved it. Yeah. And you know what McDonald's did? They're like, oh, I really need my money. So they came up with a veggie menu. So the money that we have, how we spend it really, if you think that you cannot get McDonald's out of business, stop buying the McDonald's. Like they will come up with a veggie children friendly menu. Yeah. Like so you, or also if you like look at how many products there are that are vegan, like Beyond Meat, Impossible Burger, the Miyoko butter that I get, the cheese, all these vegan restaurants, they respond. Like the fact that you can go to any coffee shop except for some in certain parts of the country and be like, can I have an almond milk latte or like an oat milk latte? And they're like, sure. That is the power of the people. Yes. You know, in pure terms and in like. And that's the positive side. Totally. Like we talk about the future looks so dark. It's really us, how we spend our money and time. Yeah. Where is invested for our well-being is really impacting the future. Right. With the McDonald's. Like nobody thought that McDonald's could possibly go out of business. It takes one documentary to educate millions of people to be like, no, my dollar will not go there. I'd rather spend it somewhere else because I don't want my children to die. But and then they had to come up with something. Otherwise, they would go out of business. Yeah. And I believe, like you said, vegan restaurants, like educate ourselves
with what matters and where we put our money.
Where we put our money.
Yeah.
There's a great app called Good On You that you
Okay.
can download. And anytime you're in a store and you're like, I want to know what Adidas is like. You'll type it in and they'll say, well, it's kind of good on using good products, but it's the way it treats its workers is bad.
Really?
And so it gives it a grading. And then you can have some, even if you still purchase that Adidas thing,
right.
you at least know
you're aware
what you're doing.
That's amazing.
It's amazing.
How's it called?
It's called Good On You.
Good on you.
Yeah.
Good on you.
Yeah, good on you.
That's good.
Yeah. And there's also, like, when you think about in terms of grand scale green energy is exploding in terms of jobs and in terms of economy. Like it
technology
grew
is
that 5 times faster than the entire economy in the US. Like green energy itself, within 5 years or something, it grew 5 times faster. It's huge. And so when people, like some certain Republicans say green energy isn't going to help anything, coal and gas and all that stuff is the way forward. It's how we hold on to our economy. It's just fear of the unknown. They're actually just wrong. There's 5 times more jobs in clean energy than in solar in particular than there are coal miners. There's just more jobs.
Wow.
And it's not like those coal miners will be out of business. It'll just take, I think there's a plan that it's like $2 trillion. It'll just take $2 trillion, which I know is a lot of money, but let's consider the grand scheme of things. Like it'll just take like a certain amount of money to train those people into renewable energy jobs. And it all seems so scary, but like it's not that hard.
I don't think it's that hard.
And it's going to take some time. We cannot pull out of oil and gas. The whole economy will collapse. We can't do it immediately. But we have to slowly
transition.
Yeah.
It's like anything. It's just a transition. And I feel like we have the potential to transition now.
Right. And the more that people who have the means purchase electric cars or like try to do their part and like change over their electric from oil to solar and wind, which you can do very easily through Con Ed. You can just make it happen.
Right.
The more the people who have the means do it, the more it will become more accessible to everyone else because it is getting so much cheaper.
Yeah.
The more popular it is.
Of course. It's like, again, where the money goes, they grow and they can make it more accessible to us.
Totally.
Colby.
Yeah.
I told you that she was great. Because I always wanted to have this conversation, but every time we work, it's
where it's like they're like up in 5 and you're like,
you're like, oh God, it was good.
But it's also it's a lot. It's a lot to wrap your head around, and it's like I haven't learned all this stuff just like that. Like
no, it takes time.
It takes time. I did a training session about it too. Like there's stuff that there's this thing called
where are places that I can research because I want to learn.
Yeah.
So,
so there's a lot of good documentaries.
Okay.
Cowspiracy, What the Health, Chasing Ice, Gasland. There's just like there's a ton. If you Google any of that stuff, it'll show up. Okay. But also there's this great thing called Climate Reality Project that is Vice President Al Gore's training session that trains people how to give his climate change presentation, essentially to do an inconvenient truth in real time.
Okay.
And it's great. It means that I can go out and organize a climate talk with a bunch of people. And it's like, it's only after having that training session that I now feel comfortable around a lot of the language and that I am right. That the stuff that I'm research that I Google is not just showing me what Google wants to show me, but like is actually
you actually get it
real. Yeah.
Wow.
But anyway, so that's a really good resource. They have training sessions all the time.
Really?
The last one that I was in, they did 10,000 people at once.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's amazing. Yeah.
Is it here in the US? Is it like
worldwide?
It goes all over.
It's amazing.
Is it online?
The last 2 were online because of COVID.
So it's
but usually it's in
person.
Yeah.
But it's still happening even
still
though it's
great.
COVID. I'll check it out. I
Check it
really
out.
will, because it's like, yes, Colby, thank you so much for
Thank
doing
you for
this.
having me. Thank you for letting me talk your ear off about this.
Oh, I felt like you were the person to talk about, because I really been wanting to do that. You came across, I thought you were a farm girl. Now I'm more impressed that you're like a Manhattan girl.
It really helps that I really didn't know this was going to be on camera, so it really helps that I just happened to wear my overalls today.
That's so funny. You look great.
Thank you.
But thank you for being here. Thank you for stopping by and dropping those seeds, because I feel like, our generation needs to hear from our generation, things like that. We don't want to have always somebody, a professor, bringing this subject, because that's what we used to get before. Nobody our generation will.
They're old.
Yeah, like, oh, they don't get it. But like the fact that our generations are waking up about this, it's huge.
The young people are it.
Yes.
Like the Sunrise Movement, the young, Greta Thunberg, the young people are it. Yeah. And I look at them, and I'm older, and I'm like, fuck. I'm like,
get it. Greta is like a goddess.
Goddess.
She's like, she's just like Mother Earth in a child. It's like weird. It's like all this energy and passion.
Yeah. But thank you also for being so curious, because a lot of people are just like, I don't want to change my lifestyle. It's a little inconvenient. And it is inconvenient, but it'll be really inconvenient when everything's on fire.
What we're living is inconvenient.
Yeah, when you lose your house. You
lose your house. I look in California, so many people, like every year, fire after fire. I just feel like, curiosity is such an underrated word.
It really is.
And when I came here, people would tell me, you're curious. Oh, be careful. Curiosity killed the cat. Like they have all this.
Curiosity killed the cat.
You know that saying, right?
I know that saying. I haven't heard that saying in so long, and I can't believe they told you that.
Yeah. So it's like, it's a fear of people. The word curiosity is not well looked at. Like when you say I'm a curious person, there's like something that is not positive.
Well, what curiosity already requires is the acknowledgement that you don't know everything.
Exactly.
And there's this book called Sapiens where he describes the only way we had any of the revolutions that we had
is because we're curious.
Is because somebody said, I don't know this thing, and let's inquire what that is. The only way this continent was founded by the white people, is because they were like, oh, I guess the map that we've been drawing is wrong.
It's wrong. Don't go too far. COVID. We're waiting for the cure. We have a bunch of curious scientists right now. They're curious. They want to figure this. It's curiosos. Curious.
I never connected that.
Yeah, we're hoping that somebody will just don't give up on finding the cure. It takes a very curious person.
It does.
Like our society is growing because there are people curious like you, like me. Like we're always looking, and that's why I came up with this, because I'm like, I am a curious person. If I was sit down with you, I want to hear you. I want people to hear you too.
I love
because I feel like
great.
It will attract people.
It will
wake them up a little bit of like, hey, it starts with your curiosity. You're a product of all kinds of stuff that was shown to you, and you decided to give it a shot. And it's hard, and it wasn't easy to be vegan to start. And it's nice that you say, hey, it wasn't like a walk in the park. I really had to, educate myself.
It took a long time.
Yeah. And it's nice to know. And because I see people, oh, I'm vegan. I'm like, really? Overnight? Like that's a life change thing.
But I also do think it gets looked at as this like identity thing.
Yes.
And it
shouldn't be.
My day isn't really that different. And sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, sorry. Ooh. But like it's not such a big deal. You just try it for a day and you're like, okay.
That's not bad.
Yeah. You try it for another day. Okay.
Yeah.
Kind of like
I met you in day 4.
Yeah.
And you're like, I'm doing this.
Yeah.
I'm still hanging in there.
I got all my stuff in my bag.
All my stuff. I guess I'm doing something right. And then now that we come back from work after 6 months during COVID, you're like, I'm still vegan. It's like, oh my God, even COVID during this pandemic, you pull it off. That's a big deal.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of drinking involved there too.
Yeah. Well, the wine is vegan, so
the wine is so
vegan.
So good.
Oh, Colby, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
You're the best. I feel like I'm smarter already.
Oh, me too.
Like, oh, great.
I was like, oh.
Yeah. You didn't. I didn't tell you what we were going to talk about, but it was just more like, hey, I'm curious about this side of you, and then you showed where this whole thing started, and
it's helpful for me to know that I know that stuff too. I didn't know that. I could
you
just
know
talk
that.
Like that. Good to know.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of people might be sailing right now in that little thing, and they don't know that their life is changing until it actually does.
True.
Yeah,
it's very true.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're the best.
Bye.
Bye.